Good evening. Today is Tuesday, June 23rd. This is the regular meeting of the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education. Can I have approval of the minutes of the June 17th, 2020 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes or? All right, all those in favor?
Do I need to abstain because I wasn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm abstaining.
Okay, so that's one abstain. Anybody else?
One absent.
One absent. And one absent, right. Now we have an opportunity for public comment. Anyone like to make public comments? Okay, I don't see any. So now we're going to move to our reports and discussion. And first we have an end of the year recognition. Steve.
So many parents have ideas and desires to enhance our child's education, but few people actually devote the time, energy, and hard work to make that happen. Jen is that person. In starting the Rhinebeck Science Foundation, Jen had a vision that took science, technology, engineering, and math out of the traditional lecture hall and brought it to life in hands-on project-based learning. In 2007, the educational news was exploding with studies showing the lasting effects of children doing science, not just reading or hearing about the sciences. The goal of the foundation was to create a $1 million private endowment for public education in the Rhinebeck schools. After 14 years as president of the Rhinebeck Science Foundation, Jen is stepping down. During those 14 years, she and the foundation have raised over $1 million in grants for the district, including $43,000 in recurring grants every year, a K-12 Project Lead the Way program, 8 Discovery festivals, screenager showings, CLS science fairs, info chat sessions with students and local professionals, 11 fundraising galas, and next year, one-to-one device for 6th through 12th grade. We asked our administrators to share some of their thoughts with us on what Jen's accomplished and what it's meant to them. And Diane and Joe are gonna go through those.
Okay, this was from CLS, from Mr. King. I can tell you that Jen was the first representative from an outside group that I met when I first started at CLS 11 years ago. I still remember walking away from that first time meeting her while I was still settling in and figuring out the culture of the building and the community and feeling that I was truly welcome. She has always been a thoughtful, confident advocate for progressive education in our district, and her drive toward that goal is infectious. If you spend any amount of time with her, it's been a great experience working with her these years in an effort to enrich an already outstanding institution and community. And from Mr. Chemnitzer, he said, on behalf of the entire BMS community, I cannot thank Jen enough for the support she and the Rhinebeck Science Foundation have shown our school during her tenure as president. For years, it seems that every time I bumped into her in the hallway or out in the community, and every time we spoke on the phone, our conversations always began with, have you heard about, or have you ever thought of trying, and ended with the opportunity to offer new, creative, hands-on STEAM programming to our students. Her support of projects, both large, like Project Lead the Way, BMS Computer Lab, and small, Madagascar Day, and Body Art, and her willingness to use her extensive network to find a class speaker on almost any topic have benefited our students in countless ways over the past 14 years.
I think I'm up now. We asked Ed Davenport for his comments, and so I'll read his. As president of the RSF, Jen has been a wonderful support of the high school from the early days until now, as the Rhinebeck Science Foundation has continued to grow and continue to help our students think about their lives and possibilities after high school. In particular, the organizational support and partnership with our school in instituting InfoChat, connecting our seniors with professionals across many disciplines, really encapsulates for me the mission of the RSF, marshaling community resources to broaden the horizons of our students. We will miss her. And I'm going to make my comments off the cuff, but I know exactly what I'm going to say. Quite a few years ago now, Ed Davenport and I decided to attend a presentation on a program that was little known in our area called Project Lead the Way. It was a presentation by some people down at from IBM who were trying to let area school districts that were interested know about the program and what it entailed. And I remember Ed and I driving down to a hotel on Route 9 down near where I'm trying to think of what's there now, kind of down near. I'm at a loss for the stores, and half of them are closed now anyway. But so we went down to that hotel and we sat in the presentation, and we both walked out of there with our jaws dropped. Like, oh my God, could you believe if we could bring this program to Rhinebeck? And at that point, we were only thinking about the middle school. And then in the car on the ride back, we were saying, yeah, but think about all the money we'd need to get to buy all this technology. You know, we would definitely be replacing building birdhouses with using computers and doing CAD and all sorts of cool stuff. And by the time we got back to Rhinebeck, it was like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but you know, we'll never be able to put the money together in a single annual budget to be able to bring this online. So nice idea. I'm glad we went down to the presentation, but you know, maybe in another life. And not too long after that, Jen and I remember the meeting we had, Jen, and Jen asked me about, oh, well, so, you know, if you had the financial resources, you know, do you have any ideas as to what you might bring to Rhinebeck? And I immediately said, we just saw this great program called Project Lead the Way, but it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be computers and renovations and all sorts of stuff that it'll take us a while to budget the money to be able to do that. And well, not too long later, with a little help from Assemblyman Kevin Cahill, I have to give props to him as well. We were renovating the old shop room downstairs and equipping it and making it a pretty high-tech learning space, and the rest is history. Because not only then did we move that into the high school when the kids who were in middle school needed the next step there, but we also explored, and with the help of the Rhinebeck Science Foundation, we're able to bring Project Lead the Way to our elementary school. And as a result of that support from Jen and from the entire Rhinebeck Science Foundation family, we are one of the few, not the only, but one of the few school districts in Dutchess County that has a K through high school Project Lead the Way program, of which I am very proud, and the community and the Science Foundation should also be very proud, because had your assistance to us not happened, it would have taken us years to get there. We're able to bring a world-class program to the school district in a reasonably quick turnaround. So thank you, Jen, for believing in us and our ability to make that program happen. It wasn't always a smooth ride, but I think it's a program that now it seems like it's been there forever, and I think our kids have benefited. I'm also quite proud of the fact that it's a program that we were able to provide and had every intention of providing to every male and female student in our school district. So everybody is exposed to that learning, to those experiences, to using that equipment to design and to build. And I think that in and of itself is a great accomplishment. So thank you very much, Jen, and the Rhinebeck Science Foundation. We appreciate it deeply.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do remember that meeting.
I bet you probably thought I was out of my mind, but
No, I remember saying, is that all that you need? Is that all that you want? We could do that.
yeah,
The community will definitely support you. I remember right from the beginning. And excited that you had enough faith in the Rhinebeck Science Foundation and the community and with the Board of Ed support and the creativity of the teachers who then instituted all those projects. It's been a fabulous opportunity to get to know everyone and see the potential grow over the years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, let's give the Science Foundation and Jen a hand. We're sorry to see you leave, Jen, but we all know when it's time to move on. And thank you for doing everything you have for us.
Thank you. And thank you for your kind words, Steve, and for reading the quotes from the principals. That was, I'll never forget that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Okay.
Thank
Have
you
a great meeting.
Thanks.
a lot, Jen. Congratulations.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Is there another comment that then is going to be made here during end of the year recognition?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
I thought so.
well, today is also Liz's last board meeting. So Liz has served on the board for the past 3 years. Yes. And we just wanted to take time to thank Liz, especially this year. It's been a lot of work. And Liz, I always appreciate your perspective on whatever topic or committee we're in. I always appreciate hearing what you have to say and getting us to think about every student in the district. It's certainly your strength, and we'll miss your kindness and your perspective on the board. So we want to thank you for your service to us.
I appreciate that greatly. I know that this past year, behind closed doors, I've been a little less than glamorous. But I really enjoyed getting to know all of you and working with all of you. And it's been such, it is a learning curve initially. I think Jacqueline and Jackie can appreciate that. But I have really enjoyed it, and I feel that the kids are in really good hands with our board, and the community has always been supportive. There's been sometimes pushback, but that makes for a healthy debate. And I will actually, even though there's a lot of meetings and a lot of committee meetings, I'm going to miss seeing all of you as much as I have. So I appreciate it very, very much. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Same to you, Liz.
Thank you, Joe.
Right. So let's move on to the district guidance plan report. Miss Emily Davison.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I
Yes.
didn't do a sound check before we started. So I'm going to speak to the action items that the school guidance team identified at the end of last year that we were planning to address throughout the 2019-2020 school year. And this is by no means an exhaustive list of all of the activities that they're engaged in on a daily basis. And it certainly does not encapsulate every building level initiative that has taken place over the course of this year, which I can respond to some of those things, but certainly the building principals can also address those for their buildings. So I wanted to just speak to those action items that we identified that I presented, I think exactly a year ago at the second board meeting in June, when we approved the school guidance plan. There were two district-wide initiatives. One was to look at formalizing a risk assessment across K through 12, looking at the procedures by which we assess student risk, and looking at the training and the documentation of those procedures. Prior to this year, we valued the individual skill set and training of our providers, but this year we coalesced around one model called the Columbia Lighthouse Screener. And last summer in 2019, we engaged in training and calibrating and developed the forms and the protocols along with that. One of those new protocols being that when there is a risk assessment needing to be done, that it's not done, that there are 2 adults. So that can be 2 counselors, that can be a counselor leading it with an administrator, but there are 2 people on hand so that we make sure that we're thorough in that questionnaire and that procedure. And it's a bit of a heavy lift because it does require a little bit more of a kind of explicit review of those questions. But I think by and large, it will help to continue to enhance our support of our high-risk students who have mental health needs, as well as to track those needs across years. And we'll be continuing that work and that calibration and training. Additionally, we looked at professional development for the counseling staff. We wanted to see professional development in the area of risk assessment, but also we wanted to look at clinical professional development. So we brought on the support of Lynn Lyons. She's a social worker out of New Hampshire to provide clinical support quarterly to our counseling staff, and she did so via Zoom before Zoom became the rage. And that was fantastic because we were able to problem solve case scenarios and talk about potential next steps. Likewise, she was also able to come in and share with the entire faculty back in November rather, strategies and supports for students with anxiety. And as you know, she'd also turnkeyed and provided a parent presentation. And so we have actually stayed in touch with her as a counseling staff and had a really great conversation with her towards the end of the school year. So we were reflecting on the current status of school closure and what that means, and how what that means for students who are comfortable staying at home, and what that means for students who have a little bit of unsettlement and unrest with sitting with uncertainty, which certainly the last few months have really put us in that position of living with uncertainty. In addition, the counselors on the counseling team also received professional development in the implementation of Naviance. And that was cut short a little bit. We expected to have additional professional development, but due to school closure, we'll have to resume that in the coming school year. At Chancellor, we piloted the K-5 school counseling program. So that's where each school counselor, we have 3 of them in the district, was assigned 2 grades, and they connected with those grade level chairs and planned at least 2 lessons to go into the classrooms and to introduce themselves and to help address specific social emotional needs within those grade level bands. And that was a pilot year. So there are things to learn and ways in which we can grow. And certainly the interruption of COVID did in our day-to-day schooling did impact that, but I look forward to continuing to fine tune that with the counselors as well as with the teachers. Mr. King and I also gathered together a group of the elementary counselors and a number of teachers to talk about sensory pathways at the elementary school, what those look like, how we can implement them, how we can provide wraparound professional development to staff and experiences for staff so that they can appropriately utilize them. It's one thing to just put them in the hallway and leave them. We want to really enhance the support of students by their presence. And so that with that comes intentional placement of the sensory pathways, the selection of the activities within the sensory pathways, and then the training and the professional development that goes along with that. And so we're really looking forward to, we've answered a lot of questions, and we're looking forward to putting those in place next in the fall, and building around and working in faculty meetings about how to utilize those effectively. At Bulkley Middle School, Carmela Fountain, the school counselor, really went full steam ahead with the new mandate to meet with all of the students in 7th and 7th grade individually on an annual basis. And she actually took that further and went to 6th grade. So 6th and 7th grade, she had the opportunity to push into classes and then see individually the students and talk about the SMART goals that they were setting. And she partnered really very effectively with Isabel Usowitz, who brought the Naviance program and developing what is a SMART goal, who am I as a learner, and doing some of those inventories at the middle school level. So they worked hand in hand to not just introduce the topic of self-exploration and identity and multiple intelligences, but also, now that I know that, what is my personal goal? And she had great success in doing that, and it was a good model that we'll move forward and look forward to doing in the coming year as well. At the high school, Naviance was also introduced and in the college and careers classes with Miss Usowitz. And so she partnered with the school counselors in those activities that were planned, informed them of what she was doing, and they had an ongoing dialogue throughout the year. Certainly, there's more to be done in the area of utilizing Naviance in terms of college applications and letters of recommendation. And those are pieces that are next steps for the coming years. Unfortunately, we had some interruption about mid-March in that process. And the other pieces that we talked about in the high school were around creating counseling spaces. So one was looking at counseling groups and how we can more effectively gather students around topics of need, identify topics of need, and then have ongoing counseling groups. And we did that on a limited basis, looking at individual needs and then making those groups. And on the limited basis that we were able to do that, it was successful, and we're continuing to build upon that. One of the challenges, of course, is that everyone's schedule is so very different, and so finding common needs or commonalities for counseling and common schedules and availability, it is a little bit tricky. And the other piece that we are continuing to explore is having the opportunity to develop a space for stress reduction and stress reduction activities. Ms. Rodier did do that on a limited basis. There was some space challenges in the high school this year, which made some of that a little bit more difficult. But we've already been in conversation about moving forward with that plan, as well as building out the counseling groups for next year. In terms of what next year looks like, the counseling team, the first and foremost, is looking at reentry. A lot of the questions on the surveys did come from the input of the counseling group in consultation with the Lions, and so they will be part of the district-wide and building level teams and digging into that data. So that's what I have. I certainly can answer any other questions you have or speak to other potentially building level activities that you had questions about that I did not make mention of.
Does anybody have any questions for Emily?
Jacqueline, go ahead.
Okay. Emily, were there any items from last year's plan that weren't able to be enacted? All the stuff you described sounds wonderful. I'm so glad you were able to do that. But were there any things that ran into problems?
Yeah. Everything but one thing, one item, which I will tell you a little bit more about, was acted on in some degree. Maybe not to the degree that we were hoping for, but I often have higher hopes and set higher goals, and then and that happens and reality kicks in. The one area that I think continues to be of concern and continues to, especially in light of the school closure, is around anxiety and our most acute mental health needs, and how we can support them within our district, and provide flexibility in our programming and intensivity in our mental health support, so that they can stay within our program and districts. Oftentimes we partner with inpatient hospital programs, therapeutic short-term settings, and that transition, and sometimes students are recommended to be home for periods of time, and transitions back into the building can be difficult. And so it's really thinking about what more can we do to further individualize and create structures around the support of our most mentally at-risk students. So that's the one area I would say that really that we need to delve deeper into, and certainly the need hasn't gone away.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I think, Steve, did you have a question?
I did, but Jacqueline just asked it, so I'll ask a little different one.
Sure.
On Naviance rollout, is that something that the teachers should be familiar with as they help students, or is that strictly a guidance department?
No, it's everyone, and I'm really excited too for my special ed teachers to be involved because it's going to inform IEP development. It really is all hands on deck, and we want it to really be infused throughout the middle school and high school, and not just for post-secondary planning, but just so that even teachers can learn more about how a student sees themselves or what their goal setting is. And I think that's so important in thinking about who's sitting in my classroom in front of me. And so to that point, that will be a focus of next year is the training for the teachers. There are some adjustments that we asked Naviance for in terms of reporting and kind of streamlining some reports. So this year was a really great opportunity for Ms. Usowitz and this counseling staff to kind of dig deep into what makes sense for us to use at different grade levels. Next year, we're going to be introducing Naviance into health in 9th grade, and then introducing and training teachers as to how to use Naviance to support the post-secondary process, but also to enhance their understanding of students.
That's a great point, because that is something that came out of that CAC discussion that we had a year or so ago with the community is having that kind of IEP-like information passed from year to year. So I'm looking forward to that happening.
As am I. I think it's going to be a really excellent tool for teachers to help just inform their practice with students.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Emily, thank you so much for this update.
You're welcome.
Any last questions? Okay, thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, board committee reports, facilities.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Let me get my screen the right spot. Okay, so we met on June 17th, and Sheldon Teeter provided the committee with an update about progress on the capital project, which is within budget so far. I'm not going to read out all the points. Basically, he updated us on all the work being done, but I will highlight a couple of things. First is that at the high school and middle school, the front circle is being excavated for drainage. And starting in the next week or two, the front entrances will be dirt and gravel, so that's a change. And also there will be a week of asbestos-related work, which will mean that the front entrance area and the hallway between the BMS cafeteria and the district office will be closed. So there's flooring work happening in 130 and 140 wings and selected areas in the front of the building. There's a delay with the countertop factory due to COVID for countertops for the physics lab. So we may need to use temporary tops or tables at the beginning of the school year. Some work on the roof. The mystery smell in the guidance area continues. Basically, we still don't know what it is, but it doesn't seem to have any detectable chemicals, despite doing a couple of tests for VOCs. But the next step will be to put down a tile floor and encapsulate it with wax to hopefully seal off the smell. And Sheldon hopes the room will be ready by August 1st. Work has been continuing at CLS, with ceilings and lockers being painted, and window work is going to be starting at the end of this month, maybe done ahead of schedule, maybe before school starts. It does seem like most things are ahead of schedule, actually. And field work is continuing in both campuses. And the committee discussed security matters for both campuses. And this is the last facilities meeting for the year.
Questions for facilities? I had a question. I know it's probably more for Tom, but for the fall, the fields that we're not able to use, I know, well, we don't really know what's going to happen in the fall, but have we already made arrangements for how we're going to, you know, what we'll be able to use, assuming there's the sports and the need for the fields?
I don't have an answer on that. Maybe Joe does. I know we talked about it at various points. We didn't talk about it most recently, or maybe Tom does. I know we've talked about it in the past, and it's on Sheldon's mind.
Yeah, so it's actually put into Steve Boucher's ball court for him to, work out, where those practices would be. And if we needed to, that we contact the town and potentially, where's the other place that we've used before? Just over here with the little soccer fields. I can't remember.
Baptist home.
Yeah, the Baptist home to look there too. But Steve was going to find out, what fields were going to be available to him, which teams could practice on them, and then determine, if we do have a season in the fall, what additional fields we may need to secure for practices and for playing. It's kind of hard to tell. We don't know how well this grass is going. First of all, the places in which they're putting in grass right now will not be available to us this fall. Maybe next spring, but even then, probably not to the following fall, actually, with those fields become available to use. So, but Steve is looking into that, and he'll be letting me know if he feels as though we need to look for other fields. That we'll begin doing that in the next couple of weeks. But he was just concerned, is there going to be a season? But I also let him know we got to think, let's think positively. There's going to be a season. Where are we going to put him if we do have it? So Steve is working on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions for facilities? Okay. I think that's all the committee reports. So moving on to updated draft of the Board of Education meeting schedule. Joe, you're muted.
It's in your packets, of course, and we did tie up a couple of the dates that were discussed at our last meeting, in particular the district goals work session. We did not set a specific date for the board retreat, except to say that it is likely going to be the week of August 5th, and also set the tentative budget work session of March 13th. Otherwise, there are no changes other than those items from our last meeting. So, of course, the board can modify that meeting schedule whenever the board pleases, but they'll probably be pretty close to that, if not exactly that, except with the addition of the first week in August retreat date once that gets firmed up.
So I have an update on that. So I think we're going there. The full board with our new board member are not available any week the same to have that. So I think we're going to postpone that retreat for now, and we can talk about it again at our the other meeting that we're going to have for the board goals. But I think it's important that everyone is there for that meeting. And right now there's just no dates in the calendar where everybody can be available.
So let me ask you a question then. Since the board will be adopting this meeting schedule at the organization meeting on July 7th, should we just take that off the calendar, and you can always, again,
Yes.
plug in a new date when you guys arrive at a date?
Yes.
Okay. We'll let the district clerk know that.
Okay. And two other things kind of related to meetings that I just wanted to bring up. So I wanted the board members to think about the idea of going back to in-person meetings. So possibly at our reorg meeting. I mean, there's a lot of, with construction, we have to look at where that could happen and following the social distancing and all of the procedures we need to follow. But I just want you guys to think about your own comfort level in doing that. If that's something that you're comfortable doing, if you want to think about going back to our regular or close to our regular meeting format in July. And you could talk about that now if you want to. If you're more comfortable sending that like in an email, that's fine as well. But I think it might be time to get back to our more of a regular meeting format. That also on that reorganization meeting, Whitney reminded me there's a lot of documents and signatures that are required at that. So that makes it a little bit easier also for in person. Let's have Jacqueline first.
Is there anywhere we can meet outdoors?
I don't know about that. Probably not at our campus. It's all under construction. And then, I don't know about that. I don't know that it would be, I don't know that the library would work. You know, we might need a bigger space than the library. You know, we could look at the details and what's possible, and then maybe when we know the details, then maybe people feel more comfortable. I think they wouldn't be open to the public, but it would be able to be viewed online for them. So it would just be the 10 of us. Mark?
Yeah, so I'd be in favor of meeting in person as long as we could find an appropriate space and appropriately social distance.
Yeah, we definitely need to follow all those rules. Absolutely. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? All right, well, I think we'll look into that, what that would look like, what space that would look like, and then before next meeting, we'll send something out, an email, and we can go through the details of that.
Just so you're aware, the next board meeting is scheduled for July 7. July 3rd, which is the Friday before, when the board agenda would typically go out, is the observed date for 4th of July, because 4th of July falls on a Saturday. So that means that the board agenda would have to go out on Thursday, July 2nd. So you would have between now and a day or so before Thursday, July 2nd, to make a decision as to whether you want to meet in person and where, or whether you want to meet that evening, July 7th, via Zoom. Just letting you know what the schedule is to get the board agenda and the board packet out to you on Thursday, July 3rd.
How would that work if we did do it by Zoom for signatures?
How do we do it now for signatures?
Well, we get the signatures right when they're there. You know
No,
what I mean?
but I mean, how have we been doing signatures for the last 3 months?
Oh, we don't have to, but, you know, for the oath of office, we have to get everybody's
Oh.
oath, that part, I mean.
Well, we might have to do it the way we got Diane's signatures on any number of things that she has to sign as board president. Have the people stop by the district
Fine.
office and sign what they
Okay.
got to sign.
I don't know if it's like required to do it like within 24 hours or, you know what I mean?
Well,
I don't know. Just wondering.
we'll find out.
Okay.
I don't think that should be an issue, actually, but
Okay.
we'll look into that.
And one last thing that's, I guess, on the same topic. I sent an email to the board last week about board leadership and asked you all to think about that, because at that next meeting, we will have to nominate and vote on a new president and vice president. So I asked everybody to think about that. We should know at least who we're nominating or who would like those positions before we step into that meeting. So I just want to remind you all to give some thought to that.
But Diane, on a similar note, if I could, I would also ask or suggest that the board start thinking about which committees they would like to serve on this year. Typically, board members serve on at least 3 committees, some on a 4th, but with the way, how can I say this politely? With the challenges involved in setting dates for a group of 3 or 4 board members for committee meetings during the course of the year, that may easily take weeks, if not longer, going back and forth to set those up. So I would suggest, and I think it's at our organizational meeting anyway, where we designate who's going to serve on which committees, at which point then the superintendent can start the process of figuring out when those committee meetings are going to be held to accommodate the schedules of the board members who serve on those committees. So I would suggest that board members make that commitment by the July 7th organization meeting as well.
Yes, I think we are going to talk about that at the meeting we have set up for board goals. We're going to be talking about the committee structure because it's possible we're going to make a change to the committee structure. So I think we've pushed that off until that meeting.
So be it.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else on the meeting schedule? I think that's everything I had. Okay. So moving on to good news. Anyone have any good news they want to share? Joe?
Good news being that we have finally received approval for providing meals to our students during the summer. There's one slight twist to that. And Tom, if I don't get it right, you can correct me, please. But my understanding is that we will be able to provide those meals, breakfasts and lunch, from July 1 through August 30th. The only difference from the way we have been allowed to do it for the last 3 months is that we'll only be able to provide the meals to students who attend Rhinebeck schools, because we will have to provide a roster to the state. There may be some people, I'm not sure how many, because we have not been carrying a roster for the last 3 months, but there may be a handful of families whose students don't attend our schools who will not qualify for those lunches through state support. But anybody who goes to our schools from pre-kindergarten through the end of 12th grade will qualify. Did I get that right, Tom? Okay, thank you. But the bigger lift is that the state will be subsidizing those meals through the end of August, as they have been since we started this on March 16th.
So Joe, just a question. So would that be like kids that are homeschooled or go to parochial school? Is that what you're talking about? Those kids wouldn't qualify?
That's my understanding. Tom, would you just
Correct.
clarify that?
They have to be registered with the Rhinebeck School District as attending here. Special ed students who are attending BOCES, who are attending Astor or something like that are eligible, but homeschooled and those attending private can't be served.
Well, I mean, it's great news, first of all, that we're going to be able to provide meals. And I would think if there is an issue with students that need meals that we were previously supporting, that we might be able to figure something out.
Yeah, I've talked to Larry. We'll figure something out if somebody is still looking and isn't actually a rostered with the school district. We'll look for means to make sure that they do not go hungry. We've already talked about that with Larry.
I think the big difference would be that those meals would not be subsidized by the state.
Correct.
But I'm guessing that is not so significant that it would be an extreme burden to the district. I think it would be pretty pretty negligible actually, but we do want to do our best to try to capture everybody who has the need. So we'll have to work through that.
Well, that's good news, and it was a pretty quick answer, so that's
For the state, yeah, it was lightning speed for them.
absolutely. All right. Does anyone else have any good news? I have some good news that our high school coaches were making the rounds today to our seniors and delivering gifts and goodwill. They brought the plaques they get, the senior plaques with their letters and beautiful signs for the lawn, and that was a nice surprise for the kids today. So I want to thank them and spending a few minutes to talk with the kids, which was nice. And the other bit of good news, I don't think we knew it at the last meeting, that we're having a semi-in-person graduation, the new guidelines for the state. So I know Dr. Davenport and many people are working hard on graduation, but I think that's good news. Graduation is always good news time for us. Be able to celebrate our kids. So that's on Saturday. I think most of you are attend. So that's everything I have in good news. Anybody else? Okay. Any old business?
I don't.
Another opportunity for public comment. I don't see any public comment. Okay. Any other?
No, we took care of our other at the beginning of the meeting, so that's been taken care of.
Okay. So move on to action items. Let's see. Can I have a motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor? Okay, that motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the appointment of department chairs and advisors for the Rhinebeck High School for 2020-21 school year. See attached.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Whereas the Board of Education has previously established an employee benefit accrued liability reserve fund, the ALR reserve fund, pursuant to the provisions of Section 6P of the General Municipal Law, for the purpose of paying the cost of certain employee benefits known, and wishes to provide additional funding in said reserve fund. Therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes and directs the Assistant Superintendent for Support Services to transfer funds from unappropriated assigned fund balance for the 2019-20 school year in the amount up to $200,000 to the EBALR reserve fund, with the exact amount to be transferred to the reserve fund to be determined prior to the tax levy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Okay. All those in favor? That motion passes. Motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Whereas the Board of Education has previously established a reserve for the purpose of paying the cost of reimbursements to the state unemployment insurance fund for payments made to claimants known as the unemployment insurance reserve fund, UI reserve fund, and wishes to increase funding in said reserve fund. Therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes and directs the Assistant Superintendent for Support Services to transfer funds from unappropriated unassigned fund balance for the 2019-20 school year in the amount up to $50,000 to the Unemployment Insurance Reserve Fund, with the exact amount to be transferred to the Unemployment Insurance Reserve Fund to be determined prior to the tax levy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that motion passes. A motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Whereas the Rhinebeck Central School District participates in the New York State Teachers Retirement System, TRS. And whereas on June 23rd, 2020, the Board of Education by resolution established a reserve fund known as the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund to finance retirement contributions to the New York State Local and Employees Retirement System, pursuant to Section 6R of the General Municipal Law. And whereas the Board of Education has determined it is also appropriate to establish a sub-fund within said retirement contribution Reserve Fund to finance retirement contributions to the New York State Teachers Retirement System pursuant to the provisions of Section 6R of the General Municipal Law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education pursuant to Section 6R of the General Municipal Law hereby establishes a sub-fund within the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund to be known as the TRS Reserve Sub-Fund to finance retirement contributions to the New York State Teachers Retirement System and/or to offset all or a portion of the amount deducted from the monies appropriated to the district of the state for the support of schools pursuant to Section 521 of the Education Law. Be it further resolved that the board hereby appropriates the sum of $150,000 for such purpose from 2019-20 unappropriated unassigned fund balance in the general fund and authorizes the district, directs the district treasurer to transfer such amount from unappropriated unassigned fund balance for the 2019-20 school year to the TRS Reserve Sub-Fund established within the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund.
So moved.
Second.
One more.
Thanks, Tom. Why isn't this on the consent agenda? Any discussion? All those in favor? Passes. A motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the following resolution. Whereas the Board of Education establishes a reserve fund pursuant to the provision of Section 6R of the General Municipal Law for the purpose of financing retirement system contributions to New York State and local employees retirement system, ERS. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby establishes a reserve fund pursuant to Section 6R of the General Municipal Law known as the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund for the purpose of financing retirement contributions to ERS and/or to offset all or a portion of the amount deducted from the monies apportioned to the district from the state of the support of schools pursuant to Section 521 of the Education Law. Be it further resolved that the board hereby appropriates a sum of $50,000 for such purpose from 2019-20 unappropriated unassigned fund balance in the general fund and authorizes and directs the district treasurer to transfer such amount from unappropriated unassigned fund balance for the 2019-20 school year to the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Matt. Any discussion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that motion passes. A motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve 2019-20 budget transfers in accordance with the Rhinebeck Central School District Board of Education policy number 6150. See attached.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion passes. And motion upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the resignation of Christopher Sneed from the position of teaching assistant effective September 7th, 2020, pending his recommended approval to a 4-year probational appointment to the position of special education teacher assigned to the Berkeley Middle School effective September 8th, 2020, in the tenure area of special education general at a salary of step 7 MA plus 18, $76,344 in accordance with the RTA salary schedule for 2020-2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Joe, you have nothing additional for?
No? You're done.
Before we adjourn, I just want to, Joe, thank you. This is your last meeting. I just want to thank you for everything you've done, and especially the last few months. Probably more than you bargained for the last few months. We appreciate it. And I hope the next week is nice and calm and smooth.
You've got to be kidding, right?
It's my hope. It is my hope. Can I have
Thank you.
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thanks, everybody.
Night.